Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. We have been looking at classic Nobel Prize winning works in the field of neuroscience. Specifically, in this series, we have been looking at the classic Nobel Prize winning works of Santiago Ramon y Cajal. In this video, we will look at the other contributions made by Santiago Ramon y Cajal to the broad field of neuroscience. Recall that he continued to work for another 20-25 years after the award of his Nobel Prize. So, in this video, we will discuss works that were performed before the Nobel Prize and also after the Nobel Prize. So, here we consider the broad contributions that Cajal made to the field of neuroscience and the enduring legacy of the legend, the titan, the behemoth, the giant, that is Santiago Ramon y Cajal. So, essentially Cajal changed or improved the Golgi technique, the black reaction technique, by modifying the timing and the chemical composition and the duration and how many times you do that. He also introduced new staining methods that were specifically applied to specific types of neurons. So, he knew which cell to stain how, because he had studied it so many times. He repeated experiments after experiments, documenting his observations very carefully and coming up with beautiful drawings, very important. And his microscopic images were so detailed that even today they are used in textbooks. Till date, even after the advent of electron microscopy, his microscopic images are super detailed. So, his contributions were so strong that even after a century, his works are still dominant. His staining methods essentially allowed the first proper clear visualization of individual neurons and their connections as in synapses. His techniques essentially allowed people to study the brain circuits and what happens after diseases. Most importantly, later Cajal's methods and approaches essentially laid the foundation for modern neuroimaging. Techniques like magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, fluorescent labeling techniques, and all these things essentially were inspired by the approach that Cajal took, and his work helped develop microscopic techniques that are used in AI based neuron modeling and connectomics, mapping brain connections. This is like what is being done today. And he wrote the book on degeneration and regeneration of the nervous system, where he described how neurons die and whether they can regenerate. He discovered that some neurons in the peripheral nervous system can regenerate, but neurons in the central nervous system, in the brain and spinal cord, generally do not regenerate, especially the adult neurons in the central nervous system do not regenerate. It is a fundamental principle of neuroscience. He also suggested that if we could remove inhibitory signals, the brain might be able to repair itself. Critical. His research essentially led to modern hypothesis based treatments and therapies for spinal cord injury patients and nerve damage. His insights and results essentially provided information about neuronal regeneration that have influenced stem cell research and neuroprosthetics research. Neural prosthetics, a hot field even today. The information for that comes from a centuries old data and inspiration from Cajal. So, his approach essentially inspired therapies that promote neural regeneration after brain injury and stroke, gaming therapies, virtual reality based therapies. All of them essentially suggest and exploit neuroplasticity. But the first person to properly describe or even posit or hypothesis about neural plasticity was Cajal. His work essentially directly influenced research into spinal cord repair and brain machine interfaces, something that is hot today. He also worked on sleep and consciousness. He studied how neurons behave during sleep and he noted that neural activity decreases but never fully stops during sleep. If neural activity stopped completely, that is death. Sleep is a time when some neurons sleep but not all. He suggested that sleep plays a role in organizing and reinforcing memories, an idea that was confirmed much later in neuroscience research. Now, this is now a well accepted fact that if you sleep well, your memories are reinforced much better. He also speculated that neurons might reorganize themselves during sleep. He investigated spiritism, hypnotic states and their potential neurological explanations. He founded the committee, did investigations psychologicas to study these topics scientifically. In personal life, he actually used hypnosis as an anesthetic for his wife during childbirth in 1888. That was his 6th child, I think 6th child. He treated hysteria patients with hypnosis, achieving results that would arouse the envy of the best miracle workers. He also studied dreams. In his dream diary, he meticulously recorded 103 of his own dreams, trying to understand the neural mechanisms behind dreams. One dream, which he called as the tactile dream, describes his brain being exposed without a skull, demonstrating his deep introspection into neuroscience. So, even in sleep, he was dreaming about neuroscience. Like they say, eat neuroscience, breathe neuroscience, sleep neuroscience. That was Cajal for you. That is Cajal for you. It's an ad, right? An ad comes like this. Likewise, he was practically dreaming neuroscience even when he was sleeping. So, he hypothesized that different brain cells activate during dreams and during wakefulness. Unlike Freud, he did not seek a psychological interpretation for dreams, but he is a neurobiologist, neuroanatomist. So, he was trying to find a neurobiological, neuroanatomical explanation of dreams. So, he hypothesized that some neurons sleep while other neurons remain active, creating dream experiences. He proposed that neurons responsible for rational thought rest, while those neurons that are storing unconscious images become hyperactive during sleep. Today, these results, these ideas, these hypotheses, these positions have been very well confirmed using fMRI studies, showing that different brain regions activate during REM sleep. In particular, visual cortex creates the dream imagery, amygdala and limbic system provide the emotional content, and prefrontal cortex is essentially logical self-control, or the seat of the executive decision making, is less active, which is why many of your dreams are meaningless, bizarre. Reality is when your prefrontal cortex is working, but mostly during sleep the prefrontal cortex is sleeping, which is why your dreams are dreams, reality is reality, which is why dreams have sometimes, actually mostly, do not have connection to reality. By the way, there are some people who dream while they are awake. These people have lost touch with reality. This is a disease, okay, that is different. So, Cajal actually viewed maybe dreaming rejuvenates neurons by keeping them active during sleep, that dreaming helps neurons reorganize and strengthen connections, and this idea suggests that the neurons are independent and they have stronger or less stronger connections between them, essentially suggesting neural plasticity, that the brain connections strengthen and weaken during sleep. And so, essentially suggesting that synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, that sleep prunes unnecessary neural connections. So, it removes unwanted connections, it strengthens wanted connections, it helps the brain to retain important memories and forget useless information. He also made an attempt to investigate the paranormal. He invited mediums and hysterical patients into his home for controlled experiments. He documented hallucinations, induced amnesia, altered states of consciousness through hypnosis. But then he was not very impressed with these results because these experiments were not repeatable. Being a brutally rigorous scientist, he won't find fun in these kind of works. So, he later abandoned spiritist research after exposing medium as a fraud. Many of these are actually fools and they are cheating. So, he was not very confident about that. So, he had skepticism. In general, he is open-minded, but he dismissed spiritism and media and all those things as lacking scientific integrity and credibility. But his investigations contributed to early research in psychotherapy and neuroscience of altered brain states. He studied visual perceptions, hallucinations, how brain generates hallucinations in dreams and hypnosis. He investigated positive and negative hallucinations, seeing things that aren't true versus being unable to see things that are real. Oh, that reminds me of what happened in neuroscience research. People were seeing the separate neurons but were not accepting. People were not seeing the reticulum but were accepting that this is hallucinations. Anyhow, modern implications. His findings essentially improved in a very big way our understanding of schizophrenia, psychedelic drugs and their effects on the neurology of hallucinations. His histological studies of the nervous system essentially mapped out brain circuits and neuronal organization. He established the neuron doctrine, growth cone, law of dynamic polarization, and his beautiful neuroanatomical drawings, detailed sketches of nervous system, various subsystems, cerebellum, retina, hippocampus, pyramidal system, spinal neurons, muscle spindles, muscle cells, wherever. Yes. And his book on textura del sistema nervioso, so texture of the nervous system, remains a classic in neuroscience. This work is comparable to Darwin's Origin of Species for evolutionary biologists, which is like a temple for evolutionary biologists. Principia for physicists, Newton's Principia. What is Newton's Principia to physicists? That is textura for the neuroscientists. Such was the contribution of Cajal. That essentially what Newton is to physics, what Darwin is to evolutionary biology, Cajal is to neuroscience, almost. So, the drawings of Santiago Ramon y Cajal, many of these drawings are available freely on the internet. I will request my teaching assistants to share links where these repository are available. Some of these are available in this book on the beautiful brain, the drawings of Santiago Ramon y Cajal. Is available on Amazon. It's a little expensive, but it's a great book. Many of these images in this book are available freely on the internet. We will share those images with you for you to check. Some of the images that are available freely we have actually shown here. For example, chick cerebellum cells, optic tectum of a sparrow are shown in this slide. So, some of these images are available online. Teaching assistants will share this with you. He also continued his research on brain structures, neuroplasticity and brain regeneration. He wrote the Degeneration and Regeneration of the Nervous System in 1913. He was instrumental in the founding of the Cajal Institute in Madrid for Neuroscience Research. I think that was 1921 or so, and he inspired future generations of neuroscientists. He essentially was a major advocate for the progress of science in Spain. Cajal's legacy continues to live on through the Cajal Institute in Spain, essentially the backbone of Spanish neuroscience, essentially the foundation of modern neuroscience, which is why Santiago Ramon y Cajal is called as the father of modern neuroscience. His microscopic drawings are still used in textbooks today. His work on synapses led to advancements in brain research. His work and his hypothesis on synaptic plasticity, learning, memory, dreams and many other things, sleep, all these things have extraordinary influence in the field of neuroscience. He influenced the development of many advanced techniques like modern microscopy and imaging in the field of neuroscience. So, which is why I called Cajal as this giant, the behemoth, the titan, the legend, that is Santiago Ramon y Cajal. With this, we come to the end of this video, and with this we come to the end of this series. In this series we looked at the major contributions of Santiago Ramon y Cajal that led to the award of the Nobel Prize in 1906 in physiology or medicine, and his continued work in neuroscience after the award of the Nobel Prize, and the influence and the implications of his research findings in various fields of neuroscience. With this we complete the discussion on the Nobel Prize winning work of Santiago Ramon y Cajal. So, in this video we have essentially looked at other contributions that were made by Cajal to the broad field of neuroscience and the enduring legacy of Santiago Ramon y Cajal for more than a century. Yes. Thank you very much for your attention.